Hello and welcome to Vocabulary Sessions. What is a personality? A personality is said to be the combination of genetic and environmental factors. Let's examine a few general and common personality types today. I am sure many of you have heard of an egoist. Egoist comes from the Latin root ego, which means self or I. So who is an egoist? A person who is self-centered, selfish, full of himself. From the root ego can also be drawn the word egotist. Who is an egotist and what is the difference between an egoist and an egotist? An egotist is not just self-centered, but he also cannot stop talking about himself. Look at that indicative T in egotist. He brags about himself, he boasts about himself, he cannot stop talking about his accomplishments. So, a self-centered, boastful person. So, an egoist would practice egoism. You could talk of an egoistic person, the adjectival form. Someone spoke egoistically, and that is the adverbial form. Ego also gives us a very common word, egocentric, coming from the root centrum, which means center. Here is a person whose life centers around himself. He considers himself the center of the universe. Now take the Greek root mania, a morbid obsession, and put it together with ego, you have the word egomaniac. Who's an egomaniac? Someone who's obsessed about himself. He's morbidly obsessed about himself, mad about himself. Look at the intensity here. The words get more and more intense. An egoist, an egotist, an egocentric person, and an egomaniac. An interesting Latin root alter, which means other, along with ego, gives us the word alter ego. So, who is an alter ego? Etymologically, the other I. But what does this mean? An alter ego is someone who thinks like me, a person who thinks like me, who has similar responses to situations, whose value system is quite like mine. He could be a sibling that I've grown up with. He could be a close friend, a buddy of mine, and we've spent years together. People who have similar worldviews are generally described as one's alter ego. At some point, the word alter ego can also be used to talk of one's other self or a secret self, a self that is not visible to the world. Alter. Let's take this root alter. That gives us a very interesting word, altruist, which happens to be the extreme opposite of an egoist. If an egoist is a selfish person, an altruist is someone who thinks of the others and places goodwill of the others before himself. Altruist practices altruism. He is always concerned about the others. Alter also gives you common words like an alternate, alternative, or an altercation, a difference of opinion that I have with somebody, and therefore a verbal dispute. Let's move on to other kinds of personalities. Some very common personality types in the words ambivert, extrovert, introvert. An introverted person, intro, look at the prefix, and the root, Latin root verto, which means to turn. So, an introvert is someone whose energies are turned inward, intro, a prefix like intro, mean inward. An extrovert is someone whose energies are turned outward, a very sociable person, someone who likes the company of people. Most people are, however, said to be ambiverts. And who is an ambivert? Ambi, the prefix that means both. Someone whose energies are both turned outward as well as inward. These are people who, yes, prefer the company of friends and socialize a lot, but there are times when they would like their space for themselves. Most people of the world are said to be ambiverts. So, verto is also seen in common words like a versatile person. Who's a versatile person? Someone who can turn talents, a lot of talents. Or universe, one turn. Or common words like subvert, invert, revert, divert. What is a subvert? Sub, the prefix that means near or under. To turn the base of something, to weaken the foundation of something. Subversion is a word that is commonly used these days. Ambi brings to mind the word ambidextrous, coming from the Latin root dexter, which means right hand. Who is an ambidextrous person? Someone who can use both hands very skillfully, because the right hand of Latin translates to mean skill in English. Let's take an interesting deviation here to understand a very interesting idea. Right hand, dexter in Latin means right hand, which translates to mean skill in English. Sinister in Latin means left hand, which translates to mean evil, menacing, threatening in English. In French, you have the droit, which means right hand, which translates to English as adroit, which is skill, and the word gauche, which stands for left hand, which translates into English as clumsiness or social awkwardness. And therefore, what is adroitness? A sharpness of the mind, an ability to conduct oneself well in social situations, because its opposite, gauche, is social awkwardness or clumsiness. So when someone commits a gaucherie, he is committing a social blunder, a faux pas, another common French phrase. Let's move on to a different set of personality types, taking the two polarized emotions, misène and philein. These two Greek roots, which means to hate, misène, which means to hate, and philein, which means to love, give you a host of words. Let's move on to a set of roots that indicate the two polarized emotions, love and hate. Philein, which means to love, and misène, which means to hate. Misène, in combination with the Greek root gyne, gives me the word misogyny, misogynist. So who is a misogynist? A hater of womankind. Gyne means woman, a hater of womankind. Let me consider the root for male, andros. And so I have a misandrist, a hater of males. And the root anthropos, which means mankind, gives me the word misanthrope, a hater of mankind. So here we are, a hater of womankind, misogyny, a hater of men or the male species, a misandrist, and a hater of all mankind, who is a misanthrope. Now consider the philein root, and I have a word like a philogynist, a lover of womankind, a philander, a male who loves to love, and therefore a promiscuous male, someone who can in common parlance be called a flirt, and a philanthrope. And who is a philanthrope? A lover of mankind, somebody who loves to do good things for mankind. So there is a philanthrope. And what is the difference between a philanthrope and an altruist? A philanthrope is someone who carries out his work in a very structured manner. He believes in the goodwill of others, but his activities are more structured, as in donating money to charity, etc. Who is an altruist? Anyone who is interested in the well-being of the people around him is an altruist. One needs to be an altruist to be a philanthrope, but one could be an altruist and not necessarily be a philanthrope. Let's return to anthropos. Anthropos in combination with logos. And what's logos? A root that means science, study of, or even words, gives me the word anthropology. And what is anthropology? The study of human society and the evolution of man, his culture. There is this word anthropocentric view of man. Centric, we've already seen the root that means center, centrum, that means center. In combination with anthropos gives us the word anthropocentric, the belief that man is the center of the universe, the worldview that is centered around man. That's anthropocentrism. Let's take another root, gamos, which means marriage. And a misogamist, therefore, would be a hater of marriage, someone who doesn't believe in the institution of marriage. Now let's extend the root gamos, and I have a monogamy, the universal practice, that which the law chooses to accept or approve. Mono, single, and gamos, someone who is in one marriage. There is no gender specific notion here, it's gender free. A monogamous relationship, or to be in a marriage that is termed a monogamy, is to be in one marriage. So who is a bigamist? Bi, that means two. Who's a bigamist? Someone who is in two marriages at the same time. Poly, which means many, gives you the word polygamy. And what is polygamy? To be in several marriages at the same time. As I told you, these words are gender free. So if I want to refer specifically to a man who is married to many wives, many women, I will use the word polygyny. A polygynist is a man who has several wives. On the other hand, as in the practice of the Draupadi married to the 5 Pandavas, that's polyandry. A woman who is married to several husbands practices polyandry. So, we've looked at different personality types today, and with a lot of roots that I'm sure are going to help you identify a lot of other words. So, what were these personality types? We looked at an egoist, an egotist, an altruist, an introvert, an extrovert, an ambivert, a misanthrope, a misogynist, and a misogamist. 9 different personality types, and with the roots that they were connected to, we've looked at a host of other words. I hope you had a great time learning this. Thank you.